At my son's wedding, my daughter-in-law smashed the cake on my face and said, "I dare you to talk to my mother, you beggar," but then someone in the crowd screamed when she saw me, shouting, "She is a billionaire." And my daughter-in-law went pale immediately. This is Alicia Harlow, and today I'm sharing a story that changed everything about the day I was humiliated at my own son's wedding and how I turned that moment into the most satisfying revenge of my life. The chandeliers at Ashford Manor cast dancing shadows across the marble floors as I adjusted my pearl necklace one final time. At 59 I learned that true elegance whispers rather than shouts. My silver gray hair was swept into an elegant chignon, and my navy Chanel dress spoke of refinement without ostentation. After all, today was my son Marcus's wedding day, a day that should have been filled with joy. I had arrived fashionably late, as was my custom. The ceremony had been beautiful, watching my only child marry his college sweetheart, Savannah Pierce. She was 26, blonde and breathtakingly ambitious. Something about her smile never quite reached her eyes, but Marcus was smitten, and I had learned long ago that a mother's concerns often fall on deaf ears when love is involved. The reception was in full swing when I finally approached the newlyweds' table. The string quartet played softly in the background, and champagne flutes caught the light like liquid diamonds. I carried myself with a grace that had been drilled into me from childhood. Back straight and high, steps, measured and purposeful. "Congratulations, darling," I said warmly to Marcus, kissing his cheek. He looked handsome in his tuxedo, so much like his late father and Savannah. "Welcome to the family." That's when it happened. Savannah's eyes narrowed as she looked me up and down. "Oh, you're finally here." Her voice carried a tone I'd never heard her use before, sharp, condescending. "I was beginning to think you weren't coming to your own son's wedding." "Of course, I wouldn't miss. Mother wanted to meet you." Savannah interrupted, gesturing toward a woman in an ostentatious gold dress dripping with diamonds. "She's been dying to see what kind of woman raised a son who can't even afford a proper ring." The comment stung, but I maintained my composure. Marcus shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. My wedding gift to them had been subtle, a trust fund that would mature over time, not flashy jewelry or cars. "I'm sure your mother is lovely," I replied evenly. Savannah's laugh was like breaking glass. She is unlike some people who show up to weddings looking like they can't afford better. Her eyes raked over my classic dress with disgust. "I mean, really, Marcus warned me you weren't exactly wealthy, but I expected you to at least try to look presentable at your son's wedding." The blood rushed to my cheeks, but I kept my voice steady. "I'm sorry if my appearance disappoints you." "Savannah, oh, it does." She stood up, swaying slightly. Clearly she'd been enjoying the champagne. "In fact, let me give you something to remember this day by." Before I could react, Savannah grabbed a handful of the 3-tiered wedding cake, vanilla with buttercream roses, and smashed it directly into my face. The cold frosting dripped down my cheek as gasps echoed around us. Conversation stopped. The string quartet faltered there. She said, loud enough for half the reception to hear, "Now you match your outfit, cheap and messy. I dare you to go talk to my mother now, you beggar. Maybe she'll give you some money for a better dress." The silence was deafening. I could feel every eye in the room on me as buttercream slid down my face and onto my pearls. Marcus sat frozen, his mouth agape. Several guests had their phones out, no doubt, capturing this moment for social media immortality. I reached into my purse, withdrew a silk handkerchief and began calmly wiping the cake from my face. My hands didn't shake. My voice when I spoke was perfectly controlled. "How thoughtful of you, dear," I said, dabbing at the corners of my mouth, "though, I must say the cake is a bit sweet for my taste." That's when I heard it. A woman's voice from across the room, sharp and shocked. "Oh my God, that's Alicia Harlow? She owns Harlow Industries. She's worth $3 billion. The woman pointing at me was Victoria Ashford, whose family. He owned this very estate. We'd met at charity functions years ago. Though I'd always kept a low profile about my wealth, the color drained from Savannah's face so quickly I thought she might faint around us. Whispers erupted like wildfire. $3 billion Harlow Industries. Isn't that the steel empire? She just smashed cake in a billionaire's face. Did you see what she called her, Marcus?" Finally found his voice. "Savannah, what have you done?" But I wasn't finished. I placed my hand gently on Savannah's shoulder, feeling her tremble beneath my touch. "Enjoy your moment, darling." I whispered loud enough only for her to hear. Some of us prefer to wait for hours. I kissed Marcus on the forehead, nodded politely to the stunned crowd, and walked out of the reception with my head held high, leaving behind a room full of shocked whispers and one very pale bride. As I drove home in my Bentley, I couldn't help but smile at the irony my late husband had always said, "Never fight fire with fire. Alicia, smother it with silk." Tonight, I'd been patient, but patience, I was about to discover, could be the sharpest weapon of all. Before we continue, I want to pause and speak directly to anyone listening who has ever felt overlooked, dismissed, or underestimated. If you've ever been told you're too old to start over, let me tell you that's a lie. Your story isn't over, and you still have chapters left to write. Our best-selling book, Reclaiming Your Peace After Pain, is filled with simple, powerful steps to help you heal, rebuild, and fall in love with life again. Click the link in the description box and start your new beginning today, and remember to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because every woman deserves to hear stories that remind her of her own power. Now let's continue with what happened next. The leather seats of my Bentley embraced me like an old friend. As I pulled away from Ashford Manor, in the rearview mirror, I could see guests spilling onto the portico, their animated conversations, no doubt, centered on what they'd just witnessed. My phone buzzed incessantly with calls and texts, but I ignored them all. The drive to my estate took 40 minutes through winding country roads lined with ancient oaks. Normally, I found this journey peaceful, but tonight, my mind raced with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. The humiliation was still fresh. I could still taste the vanilla buttercream, but beneath it was something else entirely, something that felt remarkably like anticipation. My home sat on 200 acres of pristine Connecticut countryside, a Georgian mansion that had been in my late husband's family for generations.